right, let's get the questioning on the road. Please help me out. Who was the last person? Okay, that's nobody. So this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna start at the end. Miss Candy. Candy. This question actually comes from one of the audience members. And, I hope it comes out right, but I want to give everyone, I really want you to think about this. In 2021, we were talking about somewhat like defunding the police. We were talking about changing the laws and restorative justice. Fast forwarding to today, when we look on the news, we see or we hear chaos. We look at Maryland, we see a lot of murders. We look in DC, the murder rate is high. Virginia, maybe they're not reporting. But looking at that for our youth, would you encourage to continue talking about restorative justice? Or do you think what we did in 2021 had an effect on the youth? And this is why they are running wild.
So thank you for that question. Again, public safety is so important to me. And I want to start by saying I belong to the party of Joe Biden. And Joe Biden is our leader, and I stand by Joe Biden's stance that we have never been for defunding the police. And in Virginia in particular, we have funded policing at an extremely high level, particularly using those Joe Biden funds during the pandemic. And so public safety and restorative justice, I believe, go hand in hand. We have law enforcement officers going out every day. My husband, one of them, and those who are in policing in Prince William County, I recently sat down with them and they talked about the fact that money is not enough to keep them safe. They need better training. They need people in leadership who know what it's like to do the job that the officers on the street are doing. They need people to listen to them. And so I think that in terms of our youth, we need to look at the root causes of some of the trauma we're seeing. We see a huge increase in mental health cases for young people, and I think that has led to increased violence. So we need to invest in that, which we've done in Virginia's budget that we recently passed, but we can't see the two as opposites. So we need police to keep us safe, and we need to keep police accountable to keep officers safe as well.
Thank you very much. Mr. Cole.
Thank you for the question. The best way I can explain it like this is I'm a big nerd. I play games all the time. And when I was growing up, I used to play this game called Pharaoh, which was based in Egypt. And you would create your own city. And in creating your own city, you had to put police stations, you had to put food. And what we would see was in areas where you forgot to put food and entertainment, it was high crime. But as soon as you put the necessary resources that that community needed, crime went down. And so we're seeing where the city of Fredericksburg just celebrated in 2021 a year of no homicides. 2022, a year of no homicides. Immediately start in 2025 where our children are shooting each other. We need to make sure that we're having after school programs. We need to make sure that we're having CTE programs to make sure that our students are being involved in the community and have options to get them out of trouble. And that is so imperative. I do not believe the things that we passed in 2020 and in 2021 increased this. I think there were other problems, and what we saw the pandemic just exacerbated, which was already there. But in 2021, we created the Marcus David Peters Alert, the Marcus Alert System, which created what's called community care team. So when a police officer is called, he's not going by himself, but with mental health professionals to determine if this is a legitimate criminal act or is it a mental health act. We also made sure that there were policing reforms to make sure that our police officers, one, felt safe. I was on the public safety committee, and many police officers came and said, these are reforms we need to do our job better and to keep us better. And so while we are seeing crime on the rise, there are still things that need to be happened that we need to do in the General Assembly and increase funding as well.
Thank you. Pastor Lee.
I think defunding was one of those areas where the definition of what people thought was just the opposite of what reality was. People were saying defund police, meaning that we wanted the bad apples out. But the true definition of it, the defunding was take money away. So by increasing the money and putting it there, I don't believe caused the problem. I believe in how we do our job, how the individuals, police are not getting paid enough for what they're expected to do. We got mental illness, we got the drug increase, we got a situation with the economy, and all these pressures cause behavior changes, and we're asking law enforcement to deal with it. So I don't think that defunding police had anything to do, for the most part, with what happened today. I think COVID had something to do with bringing on some stress and exposing mental illness. And so there are a lot of areas that need to be addressed. And public safety also need to step up and be briefed and given the resources that they need, including the educational piece, to know what they're dealing with now and just not wrong. Black and white situation, that this is wrong, this is right, that there are a lot of areas that more attention need to be given to.
All right, thank you. Mr. Tully.
So minimum standards for a law enforcement officer in Virginia is 21 years old with a GED. We're asking a 21-year-old with a GED to go to respond to a mental health crisis or to a domestic violence crisis. That, for me, is very interesting. So the defunding of the police, I agree, it wasn't bad. I think the COVID exacerbated some issues that we're having in our communities already, and we need to refocus our energies and place them somewhere else. And I think CSPs, Community Service Board, is where we need to be looking at. CSPs, in Fairfax, we put sheriff's deputies in the CSPs. They were responding with mobile crisis to events. The police officers needed help. And then we had those resources available to us. They've done it here in Fredericksburg and Stafford, but it's only on limited days, like Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I'm not sure exactly what the days are, but we need more mental health professionals in CSPs trained to handle these events and putting them with police officers. Jails are not the place for mental health. I'm sorry. We deal with it on a daily basis at Fairfax. The amount of mental health that's going on in our jails is not correct. When they closed down the state hospital system and they put that back in the community, they put that problem in the community and they didn't fund it. I think it's time we revisited it and we funded it properly, and that's through the CSPs.
Thank you. Mr. Tully, the next question will start with you. If elected, you answered that question, right? Yeah. Okay. Sorry. If elected, what legislative changes would you propose to existing proper laws that severely restrict what counties can demand from the developers?
Oh, I love my developer, let me tell you. That's on the local level. The board of supervisors and proffers come there. I would make it easier for the board of supervisors to get money, get the correct amount of money to support building schools, to support our infrastructure. Right now in Stafford County, the bus depot in Stafford County, the bays aren't big enough to hold the buses. There's not enough infrastructure to handle our bus situation. And so we got to get our kids to school. We got to get them access to those things, and getting the proffers and the correct proffers and the correct formula for our board of supervisors to collect that money is very important. So I would support legislation for that.
All right, thank you. Ms. King?
Okay. So, Virginia has an interesting, being a Dillon rule state, we have an interesting intersection of local and state, sort of authority. I do believe that we need to give localities more flexibility on the proffers, but I was also the lone vote against allowing businesses to lowball their value. So we have all these data centers coming in to Stafford and Prince William County, and they make a lot of money because they have, they run companies around the world. They make a lot of money, but often we don't require them to pay their fair share in taxes. We pass that tax burden on to the taxpayers when those companies should be responsible. And I stood alone because I saw the things that were happening, allowing these companies to write their own rules. And I think that's where the state comes into play with putting more parameters around the way these companies are able to come in and dictate their own rules with the localities.
Thank you. Mr. Cole?
So the proper law was changed back in 2016, if I'm not mistaken. I would like to go back to before that law was created, making sure we go back to that. But one of the things that needs to be protected, what Delegate King said, but also we saw members of the Board of Supervisors and City Council trying to get kickbacks and their own benefits. So we want to make sure that that is protected. So they're not able to do that. But we definitely want to make sure that as our supervisors are doing their good job, our city councilors are doing their good job, and they say, hey, you want to bring this development here, you want to build this neighborhood, that's great, but we need you to put a school here, we need you to put stop signs here, we need this to be expanded. And so they want to do their job well. We want to make sure they do that, but we also want to make sure we're protected to make sure that people aren't getting greedy.
All right. Someone also said sidewalks.
Yes.
Pastor Lacy?
I'm not an expert in this area, I have to do more research, but I believe the law you're talking about limit what the locality can properly put into the corporation would create this means that Candy was talking about. So I believe that we need to push legislation to hold them accountable and give the money to, if they feel that they can come in and build a subdivision, money need to be put up for infrastructure, need to be put up for schools. But because they are limited, this is where we need to vote in the right persons on the local level that they would do just by the money that comes and not get the kickback. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Don't put the mic down yet. I'm going to ask you, Pastor Lacy, if elected, what would you do to expand broadband access across Virginia, especially in rural and low-income communities?
Push, and push hard. I think it's an excellent question. Broadband is necessary for educational system, school system, as well as for instruction at home, and a lot of other means of working from home. So we do need broadband. So we could push legislation to make sure that that happens.
All right, thank you. Mr. Tuff?
If you look at a broadband map of Stafford and Prince William, you would be amazed just in our areas. And we have these huge data centers going in, but we don't have broadband. So I would support broadband, not only for our schools, but from working from home, giving access to all communities in the 23rd district.
Thank you. Ms. King?
So I've supported broadband expansion, in which we do have some funding coming through in the budget, but what we need to change is sort of this idea that it is just in rural communities. You can go right up Route 1 and you can, when you're knocking doors and your phone, there's no cell service, there's dead zones, which is also a public safety issue. So we've had a huge amount of investment from the Biden administration in broadband, but I'll be fighting to make sure the governor and those decision makers are considering communities like Stafford and Prince William when they're making decisions about where the funding goes. And just in general, we see all of these power lines, all of these above ground infrastructure things, and a storm comes, knocks something out, and we're out of pocket for days, sometimes weeks on end. We have to get serious about making future decisions about our infrastructure, the power as well as the broadband. And so that's what I'll be fighting for in Virginia, not just making decisions that are like for now, but we're at a critical point where we need to make major infrastructure changes.
Thank you very much. Mr. Cole?
Absolutely. I joined with my colleague when we've served in Richmond together to make sure we're fighting for broadband expansion in the state budget. Under the Northam administration, there was the largest investment. Now that we're under a new administration, we do want to make sure that that fire still puts the feet to hold that accountable. And as Mr. Tully said, it's amazing to think that if you just go knocking on doors or seeing some of these neighborhoods, the communities that you think would have internet access that do not. It blew my mind when I got elected a couple of years ago to find out that in my neighborhood, the neighborhood right next to us did not have high-speed internet. I was just blown away because I had the privilege and the opportunity to have it. I think this is so important why it's clear we need to elect qualified leaders to go to Richmond and keep fighting for what needs to be in the state budget. And General Assembly has a high turnover every 4 years. And you need to make sure we have the right qualified people fighting in the budget, and also the right people from our region who knows what it means to fight for our region and knows the issues our neighbors face every single day.
Thank you. Mr. Cole, we always talk about common sense gun legislation, but in 2022, the House Bill 1078, which limits the use, transfer of a firearm within a family, failed. And that would have prohibited the lawful transfer of firearms between certain family members. Can you tell me your stance when it comes to limiting the use and transfer of a firearm between family members, and would you reintroduce the bill?
I am not familiar with that bill, so I'm gonna have to do my research and find out. But as it relates to gun reform, we definitely have to make sure that we are protecting for me, it's about protecting our kids at school and our family members at home. I do believe that owning the right to a gun is our American right. And so if a father wants to pass a gun to a son who's old enough to handle it and is trained, I believe they should be able to do that. But I'm definitely willing to look into this bill, find out what it was about, and consider supporting it.
I did my homework. Ms. King.
So I sit on the Public Safety Committee, so I get to hear those bills first. And one thing that I just continue to remind people, because I've sat through committees and I've heard the family members of those who were massacred in Walmart in Chesapeake, of people who have lost their babies to gun violence, through accidents or through improper storage. And I watched as, unfortunately, Republicans in the House killed every single common sense gun law that was proposed. Safe storage, no. To give gun owners a tax credit to buy safe storage, no. And so we have the right to bear arms, but do we have the right to live? Do our babies have the right to live, not in fear of someone coming into their school with a gun? So while I think, family transfer is one singular issue, there is a larger issue of access to guns for young people that is putting more lives in danger.
Thank you. Mr. Tully.
My dad gave me a gun when I was 18, 19, and it was locked up for a very long time, and I really didn't have access to it. But that gun meant something special to my dad, and it's a memory I have of my dad. So I'm not sure what the legislation was about, but I'm a big advocate of gun safety. I'm a gun owner. I have my stuff in a safe, it's locked up, and the ammo's stored somewhere different. So I will always advocate for gun safety and good common sense gun laws.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Tully. House Bill 1015, Workplace Violence Protective Orders, which would have allowed an employer to petition the court for a preliminary protective order to protect the health and safety of its employees, failed. Can you tell me, would you reintroduce that bill, and how would it be different?
I'm unsure how the first bill was written, but it's important that we have safe communities and safe places to work. And if an employer needs to remove a hostile employee or a dangerous employee, there should be mechanisms in place. So I support legislation to make sure that would happen.
All right, thank you.
Again, I don't know how that bill worked. However, I do think that we absolutely have to protect people in the workplace. I was approached by a lady a couple of weeks ago who asked me what I consider carrying a bill as it relates to protective orders, because apparently protective orders do not protect from online bullying. And so there was an ex that she had a protective order against, but he was still able to reach out to her on social media, create new social media posts, and still call her job as long as he wasn't showing up in person. And you are constantly hearing stories of people who are harassed at work by a coworker, and maybe their boss doesn't listen to them. We absolutely have to protect those who are vulnerable amongst us and those who do not feel safe. And especially as an employer, it should be incumbent upon us to make sure all of our workers feel safe and that we're listening to them.
Thank you. Pastor Lacy?
Certainly, I don't know to be a leader in my youth, calling all these numbers out, I'm writing it down. So HB 115, HB 1078, I got to go home and study tonight. But certainly our communities, our schools, our homes, our places of work, they all need to be safe places so we can do our job. So certainly I would support that. And that goes back up to the prior question that you skipped me on.
I am so sorry.
Common sense, gun laws are easy, but I just don't understand why you living in the middle of the city, you've never been out the city, you gotta have a high-powered rifle or machine gun. That's just common sense. Why do you need that kind of weapon? That should be a red flag, come by and check this person out. Why are you buying that? So although we have a right to bear arms, I think that common sense, gun control, along with somebody that needs some mental help and a gun, they just don't go together. And you show up on my job, we shown up, got a problem. So certainly we would support legislation, push that in. Now it's House Bill 115.
And charge that to my head and not my heart. Ms. King?
Thank you. So I remember this bill. It did not even make it to the floor for a vote. And this bill was brought forward by a Republican woman, and it was killed by the Republican Party of Virginia, because we had families of folks from Virginia Beach and other workplaces who had lost family members to workplace violence and who were advocating for this. And there was no compassion for those families. And that is why it's so important that we send people to Richmond who are going to vote their conscience and vote their community and not just do what their folks tell them to do. Because people will continue to get hurt as long as we have these folks in Richmond who just follow whatever the party line is, and without thinking about the harm it will cause to their constituents, especially women in the workplace who are disproportionately impacted by workplace violence. So we elect more women, but elect more women and allies who are bold and gonna stand up and fight for those women who are facing workplace violence and intimidation.
Thank you so much. I'm going to start this off with Pastor Lacy since I forgot. If elected, what would you do to address the impact of climate change on communities of color? That's fair.
When I get elected, it's just, and I know the question said people of color, but climate change, environmental issues, we need to take care of this earth in which we live. So protecting the environment would be one of those priorities that we have. And again, all that we can, I do believe in solar. I believe that we need to push that, not just sun, but wind, solar as well. So the environment, we need to protect, clean water, the whole gamut, and just have to do the research on it so that these bills get it done.
All right. Mr. Cole?
I was excited as a member of the House of Delegates to enact some of the powerful clean energy bills that we passed, the Virginia Clean Economy Act, pushing back against a lot of these big corporations where they impact small Black communities. I was blown away during my time on the House Agriculture Committee to find out that the city of Hopewood was only built to be a Black community of Black workers who were forced to live close to the factories, and they were harmed by the air pollution. We are also finding out in other areas where maybe Dominion Energy or some of these other energy companies are putting sensors that will negatively impact the water or the groundwater, where many of these African American communities live off of the groundwater. And so we need to make sure that there is state legislation that protects these communities. We also have to make sure that we're protecting clean energy, clean air, and then this is another way of how you get reparations. Not only do you do clean energy and clean air, but you need to have clean energy jobs and making sure these people are trained and that they are hired and they're getting these well-paying jobs.
Thank you. Ms. King?
Thank you. So I am very proud to have a lifetime A score from the Sierra Club and the League of Conservation Voters, because there's been this narrative that Black folks don't care about what's happening with the environment. When we are the ones whose children have higher rates of asthma due to air quality, we are the ones who suffer the most due to lack of access to clean, safe water. And so I have been very proud to be a voice for environmental advocacy, for good choices that prioritize people over profits and over corporations. But I think we have to work with folks up and down the ballot, local level as well as the federal level, to put more parameters around the work that people are doing, the development, how it's impacting our groundwater. And so we just need people to be more proactive about a lot of the things that we're approving without thinking about the ramifications.
All right. Mr. Tully?
I thought only Flint, Michigan had a water problem. I learned something new today. I would support legislation for clean energy and for all communities. This is important to all of us, and everybody on the panel, I think, can agree that this is a very important place to go. And I didn't realize Hopewell, I learned a lot of stuff today. Wow. But when it comes to those opportunities, the State Corporation Commission has to be paying attention to what's going on. These big corporate people coming in and companies coming in, they have to be doing their due diligence with them and making sure they're paying and doing the right things and not affecting our communities and all our communities. So I would support legislation, State Corporation Commission, in their ability to monitor the big companies that are coming into Virginia.
All right, thank you. And this is going to be our last question for the night. So the last question, save the best for last.
He did it 3 times.
Oh, I was like, wait, what?
You forgot Dr. Lee.
I did it again? No, you answered. Okay, man, see, don't confuse me. You had my mind going. I was like, wait a minute, 3 times in a row. This is going to be the last question for the night because I want you to mingle with the audience after they've heard all your answers to my hard questions. And so this last question, I really want everyone to think about because for some, it's really, really important. California, and I'm going to start with you, Mr. Tucker. California established a task force to study and develop reparation proposals for African Americans. Should Virginia do the same? And if we do, as a legislator, what would you propose?
That's an interesting question. I think the word reparation, when people start talking about that, they think of, they put I guess a dollar value to 40 acres and a mule. And I don't think that's what we're looking at. I think what we should be looking at is 48 acres of a mule makes a family sufficient, self-sufficient. And how do we do that as a legislature is, bringing down those barriers that have been created and giving access. The HBCU is another great avenue to be breaking down those barriers and getting them the appropriate funding. So I would open the conversation, maybe doing a task force or some sort of study to figure out where we can start and maybe open dialogue and maybe understand the word reparation and really what it means and what it means to the community and the communities of color.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Full.
So I'm excited to say that Virginia did have one. I don't know if we still do, but we had one, and I served on the commission with some great, powerful minds. Delegate McQuinn from Richmond was the chair. Dr. John Kinney from Virginia Union University, Xavier Richardson here from Fredericksburg. And we had conversations about what reparations look like today. And it's not just a blank check to give to people. Sometimes it's free community college or making sure that SWAB, that small women and minority-owned businesses, are giving first opportunities for different things. We want to make sure that there is what we're calling equity, not just equality. Because equity means you're giving what someone needs to be at the same playing field. And we need to make sure that equity is given to any and everybody. And so while I didn't get reelected and I don't serve on the commission anymore, I'm looking forward to maybe getting reelected and doing the work again.
All right, thank you. Pastor Lee.
Okay, don't skip me again. I definitely would support this, the study as well, and not just the study about the amount, but look at really helping out in other ways to do it. If the committee is not enforced to do this, to continue, we need to bring it back and also make the compensation necessary. In our country, this country particularly was built on the back of slavery. Other groups has come in and compensation have been freely given unto them. And here we want to keep ignoring the fact. And I do believe that there should be some form of preparation taking place, and how that look, I think that a task force or study can bring that out. And again, when we have a healthy community, a smart community, we will be a shining light in this world. Just need to do what is right.
Thank you. And Ms. King.
Thank you. You know, when I look out in this audience, I look at the faces of folks who were forced into substandard segregated schools, who are still here with us to tell that story. They deserve to be repaired. That's what reparations means. Repair the damage. In Virginia, we have a history. Prince Edward County, families that were locked out of school for 5 years and had their futures destroyed and the futures of their children's children. They deserve to be repaired. So we've allowed reparations to be co-opted, to think, oh, it's all forgotten, it's in the past. I serve on the Brown versus the Board of Education Committee, where I am so fortunate and privileged to sit next to the sister of the young woman who changed the world by stepping out of her school. Barbara Johns, teenager, stepped out of her school and forced her school to give them better services and support. This is real. It is not ancient history. It deserves to be repaired. And I'm pushing forward a bill that would expand the Brown versus the Board of Education, because we had countless communities, Black communities, that were destroyed. For Christopher Newport University, for Old Dominion University, the Commonwealth of Virginia took people's land, did not pay them a fair value. Those families deserve to be repaired.
All right, drop that mic. All right, well, that concludes our NAACP, our Stafford NAACP forum for the House of Delegates candidates. I want to thank each and every one of our candidates here for their participation tonight and for the willingness to run for this important office. It is really, really important. And so I say good luck to each and every one of you. And also to the audience, I want to thank you for coming out. And I'm not sure what to say. Oh, yeah, I'm gonna do that. And I would like to remind you to vote on November 7th, but more importantly, when you do hear the closing, capture it. And remember to vote your values and value your vote. And with that, I'm going to start off with Joshua Cole to do your vote. And then I'm going to say Pastor Lacey. And then I'm going to say Mr. Tyler. And then you're going to end it, Ms. King. There you go, I forgot.
I can stand up again, don't I? I don't want the president coming after me. So again, thank you so much for joining us tonight, to each and every one of you, to the NAACP for hosting, to our wonderful Divine Nine groups that are here tonight, who co-partnered and sponsored. Thank you so much. I'm excited for this race this year. I'm really excited at the opportunity that we have to keep fighting for Lottie Dottie and everybody, to make sure that we're fighting for our educators, that we're fighting for women, that we're fighting for our students in our schools, to make sure that we're fighting to make our streets safer. And allow me to just state that I'm the only candidate in this race running for the 65th House District who has the experience, who has the know-how, and the ability to get down and keep fighting for us. And for many of you who may not be aware, the General Assembly is seeing the highest turnover they have ever seen. There's over 20 delegates who are not coming back to the General Assembly. And we need strong delegates who know how to handle the system, especially while we have a green governor who mishandles our money and our budget and just got a budget together when it was supposed to be together in February. So we need qualified legislators who are going to Richmond and keep fighting for us and elevating our voices. And so if you live in the 65th district, that means if you live between the landfill here in Stafford County, all the way up to the mall in Spotsylvania County, you live in the 65th district, I would love to earn your vote. I'll be here for a few more minutes to talk with you if there's some other questions you would like to have answered. But again, my name is Joshua Cole. I'm running for the 65th House District, and I would be honored to be your next delegate. Thank you so much.
Well, I did not start by letting you guys know a little bit more about me, so I want to close with that. I am a pastor, retired police officer. I've lived in Stafford County since 1971 for the most part. Now I'm getting into politics. You go. But I was raised in the state of Alabama, and I was raised with the principle, if you see someone down, help them up. Encourage, build up, inspire. And that has been principles that I have lived by, try to live by every day of my life. Being a pastor and a police officer, 33 years with the state police, you see people in their natural suffering and their natural need. And it's a humbling experience that you have an opportunity to do something about their lives, help them out where you can. I'm a widower, grandfather, great-grandfather. You wouldn't tell it by looking at me, but yeah, you know. But I've been through enough to know the difference between right and wrong, between those that are privileged and those who have not. And it's that middle area that we need to work on, that we can all live together. I don't understand why we can do great things in this country, but the small things and helping one another out, we just can't do. So I thank Keisha for hosting tonight. Guiding us through tonight, and NAACP for hosting us. Let's join together, put our minds together, and change this nation for the better. Let's not go backwards anymore. We had to put policy legislation in place to get us to where we are. So let us build on that and move forward. If I would say anything, we perish because of lack of knowledge. Will we take the time to just look at ourselves and see where we are? I know I'm over my time, but don't count right now. We're almost ready to go. Yeah. 60. Yeah, it is my building. The lights me all the bit. But the 65th district, a good way of looking at it is the west side of Route 1, all the way up to the Fort Hill County line, south side of 610, all the way down to the north side of Route 17. That's pretty much the 64th district. I certainly would be honored if you go home and get all your people. Don't get lighted down everybody. They vote for John. I just want your cousin them, your uncle them, your mama them, your neighbors, all bring them out. If they don't have gas in their car, put them in your car and bring them out. Vote early. 22nd of February is early voting. September. 22nd of September, 22nd of September. Y'all go out just watching us online to vote early so we can get this thing done. Ready to go to Richmond? I told somebody the other day, yeah, I got the red card. Yeah, you put it up there. I got the red card. I'm in this to win it. If you're not gonna win it, don't get in it. So I'm gonna win it.
That's a hard act to follow. Thank you for hosting us in your building. Your building is in the 23rd district. That's my district. So my district is Route 1 from the post office all the way up to Dale Boulevard, 610 on the north side to 234 on the south side. So that if you're in that area, go out and vote early. You can vote next Friday. So it's happening. And the quicker you vote, the less knocks you're going to get on your door. And I appreciate NAACP and all of you for attending. And my fellow candidates, thank you. This is the hardest thing that I have ever done. The emails that I've gotten, I don't want to see what your inbox looks like, but the nasty emails I've gotten, and I'm not even doing the job yet. I appreciate what you guys and gals are doing. And you have a choice, and you can make your choice on your heart and on your mind. And I hope to be able to serve you in the 23rd.
Thank you so much to the NAACP. I never leave an event without saying, as a young woman growing up in Virginia, where would I be without the NAACP? So many of the things that I have been able to experience in life have been because of the work of the NAACP, so I'm just honored to be here. So in closing, nothing in my background suggests that I should be here representing this community in the House of Delegates. I am one generation out of the cotton fields of Virginia. My grandparents had 3rd and 4th grade educations, but they created a life for me and for our family. They gave us access to education, and that's why I ran, so that every child can have access to what I've had access to. I've fought for Stafford County Public Schools, working alongside others. I've served thousands of Stafford County constituents. I fought for grocery tax relief. I fought this year, wasn't successful, but for an exemption for Stafford County residents on these Easy Pass fees. We should not pay hundreds of dollars a month to go up and down the road to work. I've been fighting for Stafford County, and I will continue to fight for Stafford County. And I would be remiss if I left here without saying this. Our daughters are watching us. We are in a world where if your daughter or my daughter finds herself in a situation where she has an ectopic pregnancy or she has a fatal fetal complication, we have a governor who has vowed to ban her access to reproductive health care. Women's lives are at stake this election. And if you vote for me, you have someone who has fought for women to have access to make their own healthcare choices, and who will continue to fight for our daughters, our sisters, our mothers, who should not be subjected to what women across this country have had to face over the last year. So I hope that you will vote for me, that you will look at my record and look at my heart and know that I'm in this to serve, because there is still so much work to do, and I'm in the fight to do it with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah. I don't